Hello and welcome to Only Lovers Book Club. It's been a whole month. Believe me when I say that. It's been a whole month. We're a romance book club and we get together once a month to discuss it. And I'm here with my two middle school crushes, Tashai and Drea. And we're going to talk about Queen Move by Kennedy Ryan. I want you to know that I kept saying Queen Moves, plural, for the longest time. And then I was like, oh, got it. Sorry, I'm an idiot. So let me read to you guys a little bit about the author. And Drea is going to read the back of the book. And then we'll get started. This was Tashai's pick. We'll get to that, why she picked it. And yeah, let's get into it. So about Kennedy Ryan. By the way, this is like an author that is like prolific on my Bookstagram and Romancestagram. There is like a book out now called Real. It's all over the place. And she's just one of those like top dogs in the, I want to say in the industry. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I just see her books a lot. All right. So Kennedy Ryan, this is from KennedyRyanWrites.com/about. A Rita Award winner and top 25 Amazon bestseller, Kennedy Ryan writes for women from all walks of life, empowering them and placing them firmly at the center of each story and in charge of their own destinies. Her heroes respect, cherish, and lose their minds for the women who capture their hearts. She is a wife to her lifetime lover and mother to an extraordinary son. She has always leveraged her journalism background to write for charity and nonprofit organizations, but enjoys writing to raise autism awareness most. A contributor for Modern Mom magazine, Kennedy's writings have appeared in Chicken Soup for the Soul, USA Today, and many others. The founder and executive director of a foundation serving Atlanta families living with autism. She has appeared on Headline News, Montel Williams, NPR, and other media outlets as an advocate for families living with autism. All right, Drea, would you please read?
Yes.
The
First
back
of all,
of the book for us.
This is what the cover looks like.
So boobylicious.
Very. I don't know who this model is, but gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Needs to be on more covers.
Oh, I forgot to mention before you start that we're all, like, if you're just listening, I'll take a look at Insta or YouTube, but we are all wearing our Only Lovers bathrobes. I want to say that this is probably going to be my official Only Lovers uniform from here on out, unless we have to do like another shifter romance. I'm just saying. This will be my default coral bathrobe. Tashai's has like a little lilac color, and Drea's is like I want to say like a turquoise teal.
It's like a turquoise.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I didn't want to forget to say that. All right, Drea, hit me with the back of the book.
I apologize for my dog barking. It says, "The boy who always felt like mine is the man I can't have. Dig a little and you'll find photos of me in the bathtub with Ezra Stern. Get your mind out of the gutter. We were only 6 months old. Pry, and one of us might confess we saved our first kiss for each other. The most clumsy, wet, sloppy, spectacular 30 seconds of my adolescence." Chris is triggered. She hated that scene. "Get into our business and you'll see two families closer than blood torn apart in an instant. 20 years later, my awkward duckling best friend from childhood, the boy no one noticed, is a man no one can ignore. Finer, fiercer, smarter, taken. Tell me it's wrong. Tell me the boy who always felt like mine is now the man I can't have. When we find each other again, everything stands in our way. Secrets, lies, promises. But we didn't come this far to give up now. And I know just the move to make if I want to make him mine."
Well, I mean, I feel like I read some of that for sure.
I feel like that makes it sound like she was chasing after him after pining over him for years. And I don't think that's exactly what happened. It sounds good on the back of the book.
Mm-hmm.
It also makes it sound like they were having like an affair, which
they weren't. Yeah, it makes it sound like an active participant. after having a sip of that delicious looking lemonade. Ah, I wish I had
Very
some.
good.
Um,
It's my favorite brand.
why did
Netley's.
you, what was the reasoning behind you picking the book? And then you can start with your overall thoughts. How did you end up enjoying it?
So I was trying to continue on our journey to read more diversely, and this was one of those books that showed up in an article or one of those online listicles when I was like trying to find books that fell into like the category of books we were trying to review. And I was like, this one sounds okay, this one sounds okay, this one sounds okay. And then I got to Queen Move and I was like, holy shit, this cover, like she's hot. So I'm glad Andrea mentioned it because the casting was like, and then I went and read the description and I thought it sounded really cool. And it had a good amount of reviews on Goodreads that made it seem like a pretty solid pick. So yeah, I decided to just like go for it, and it wasn't like someone in their 20s, you know, they're also like adults, like it's an adult romance, which I do like to read sometimes to get a break from like the 22-year-olds moving to New York and like struggling. And yeah, I decided to go for it. I read it pretty quickly. I read this book like 3 months ago, I think, actually. So, or 2 months ago. I can't remember. Yeah, I know.
Gold Star 2021 Gold Stars are all going to Tashai.
She's gonna win the MGP award of the year.
What's the G stand for?
Gold. Instead of most valuable player, most gold player.
Okay.
But yeah, I started reading it because I had put it on hold and it just got delivered fast. Like I'm pretty sure this was a library loan. I can't remember if I bought it or not. I can't tell the difference anymore of what I borrowed and what I bought. But in any case, I read it because it was really fast. And I was like, oh, whoops, I guess I finished this book. Cool. I gave this book 4 stars. It ended up, I just enjoyed the experience of reading it more than I thought I was going to. And I like appreciated some of the themes that came up in it, which weren't super expected. For example, you know, she the main character, True, she like struggles with fertility, and there's a lot of conversation about her trying to like figure out how to deal with that, and like the idea of how women who are in complicated jobs and like stressful job positions oftentimes do kind of have to choose between their career and having a family. And I thought that was interesting. Her body changing comes up, but isn't like she kind of is down on herself for gaining weight at some point, but her body is still like very much appreciated by the lead. So it was nice to see someone being like, oh, I'm gaining weight because of medical reasons, and it just being normal. It just being like, yeah, this is what my body looks like now. I'm not going to change myself to fit this dress. So let's change the dress so that I'm comfortable in it. Like that kind of stuff I appreciated. I appreciated that it was like, Black love. I'm like, cool. This is like nice to read. It's nice to see like a positive childhood relationships and like boys and girls being friends and having like an established relationship and stuff. It definitely like kind of went into a little weird territory. And I have a question about like the progression of their relationship, because it definitely had a couple of scenes when they were younger where the lens through which we were watching the friendship blossom was a lot more like intense than I think it should have been. And I wasn't super comfortable reading some of those scenes. Even though, like, I know I, as a child, definitely had, like, crushes and feelings for people. Seeing those from an adult eye, knowing that there's, like, a sexual relationship between these adults, it just, like, it was a little uncomfortable, like, kind of having that, Venn diagram of like stuff going on, like sexual tension. These are kids. You're like, ew. But overall, I had a good time. I thought it was a pretty good book. I like enjoyed more things than I had issues with things, and so overall, I just was like, okay, like this was a good time. Like I read it quickly. I didn't have too many issues with things. So yeah, I might change my mind in the future. Who knows? But for now, I was left with a good enough impression that I was like 4 stars. If anything, the fourth star got clinched by the book cover, just because it's a really good. It was a good choice.
I think it's funny when any of us come into the book club hangout and we're like, I hated it, and then everybody else is like, well, actually, what did you think about this? And then by the end of the hangout, it usually happens to me where I'm like, this book is stupid, and then I'm like, actually, that wasn't too bad. So I like it when that happens. Dre, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I didn't love it. It was solidly in like the meh for me. It's probably around like a 2.5 for me, but I rounded it up to 3. What?
Don't worry, Tashai spit her ice out
Oh,
You're fine. I just happened to be looking squarely at her when it happened, and
I was like, "¿Qué dije?"
No. You're doing fine. I would absolutely unmute myself and tell you, like, "Oh my God, Dre, your titties are out," but that's not what's happening. I just laughed because Tashai spit out ice. I felt like she looked at me across the the computer screen, like we made eye contact and we started laughing. That's it. You're fine. I'm sorry we interrupted you.
I'm muting myself and everything.
Yeah, no, but it's just you two on my screen, so I'm like, okay, go on, Shreya. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So I rounded it up to 3 stars on Goodreads, but it was probably around 2.5, just because I think in general the like childhood friends to lovers is not like my favorite trope, anyways. I always have like a hard time, and this might just be like a me thing, but I hate when people are like, oh yeah, this was my first love, and then I went and had this like whole long amazing relationship with someone else, but then the minute that they show up, they're like, nah, that relationship didn't mean anything. You're my soulmate. Clearly I didn't know what love was. Like if I had run into you 5 years ago, I would have never entered like that. Always makes me feel kind of shitty. And I think that's why like I'm never a super fan of this trope, because they always have other relationships, right? It might not be like at the minute that they meet, but like they usually have kids or have marriages, and then it always makes me feel like weird that they're like, oh yeah, I've been pining for you for like 20 years, but also I went and like got myself like a new family, because I'm like, okay, well, were you really pining for them, or were you like lying to your current relationship this whole time? Because the two of them cannot exist at the like, you know what I mean? So I'm just not like a huge fan of the trope, but I thought her job was really interesting. I like that it was so grounded in like kind of a contemporary, like physical, like I'm like, okay, this is Atlanta. I could picture it. It's like political candidate and like today's times. Like I like that. It was very easy for me to like picture the world. I like that he was, in education, and like, I like the characters. I like their jobs. I just didn't necessarily like them together. I think was my thing. But I do agree with Tashai. Like I really like that they had the perimenopause rep and all of that other stuff, because I do think that that's not talked enough about in romance or in like women's lit in general. So that was like nice to see. I just wasn't super like invested in the characters. And I mean, I guess I feel like everybody's mentioning like the childhood part of it. And I think in my case, like I wasn't super like weirded out by it, because I work with teenagers and I've had teenagers in my house and they 100% like act like that and feel like that. But I did think it was weird that they included it in a book for adults. Like it's something I would have expected in a YA. But not necessarily like that. This is not the demographic that I would expect like such details in. So that was funny. But yeah, no, in general, like it was, I mean, I finished it. so that's already like, I'm already doing great. Yeah, but it just wasn't like, I don't think I would check out more books by her. And I know that like people love her. So I think it's like a me thing and not necessarily like the book itself. But I agree. I love the cover. Love the cover. Love, like, this is exactly who I was picturing. I like when they have the like photographs of people in romance novels in the cover, because then I can like, it's like, oh, he's sucking her titties, and I know what her titties look like because they're right there. Christina. Okay, like, you didn't do the same thing. They're right there.
Listen, I absolutely did. And sometimes, Drea, I'm not laughing because you're like, that you said something wrong. It's that you said something so exactly right. You hit exactly what I was thinking, especially when it came to the titties.
Guys, I found the model.
Oh my God. Wait, does she have an Instagram? Send it to us.
I need to see, but I found her modeling profile page. She's 5'7", 32C, so real.
That's my size. Pero mine don't look like that.
Necesitas un miracle, bro. That's what she's got.
It's the bra.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you were going to send us the profile, Tash. So
I'm trying to see if I can find her on Instagram.
Okay. Then I'll go ahead and give my impressions while you do that. So agree with both of you guys. I enjoyed the book for the most part. There were certain things that like put this in the very like, maybe I'll check out other books from this author. But I think that the good things outweighed the bad. It's just that the bad for me were just so glaringly, it was just weird. And I don't want to get too into it because I know you've got some questions for us, but I guess just an overview of, I agree that the parts, I liked the beginning because there's like a lot of like family context. It almost felt like a soap opera, una novela, like, and then you get like the family saga, you know, what the first generation and the next one. And then there's like this mystery, right? That's kind of like driving it forward. And I kind of hope we do talk about the mystery because that was like, it was like a thing for me. And I agree that in the beginning that the chapters of them as kids felt definitely written from an adult lens, if that makes sense. Like it definitely felt like an older person writing what a younger person should feel like. And because of Andrea, I've read a lot of middle grade novels, and I know that middle grade novels don't sound like that. So it was kind of a little bit like strange. That didn't really take me out of it too much. As for Ezra and Kimba, so things that I enjoyed, like the rep, as you guys talked about, perimenopause, women having to have it all or trying to have it all or having to pick like the things that they want to do to be considered a successful person versus like, you know, their own personal ambitions, being biracial, being Jewish, in a predominantly Christian community. All of those things were topics that came up that surprised me, and I felt were handled really well, especially with Ezra's kind of like exploration of like, yes, I went to like Jewish camp, but then for like college, I wanted to make sure that I went to a HBCU. I forget what it is. I forget how the acronym goes, but Historically Black College or University. I think that's what it is. Yeah. So I think that those things were handled super well. And I don't think that the romance was fumbled. I just think that I had like too much. I have like trope whiplash. I felt like this was set up as like, right, that like kid, like I don't know what it's called, like the first love, second chance, maybe.
I think it's just second chance, probably.
Yeah, and it felt like a second chance, and I feel like it was set up like a slow burn, except it wasn't. It went from like 0 to 60 0 to 100 so fast. It got really dramatic, and then. Yeah, I guess we'll talk about it. I feel like Ezra was very possessive, like a lot. And I don't necessarily like that, me personally, as a human being. But I mean, characters don't have to align with my values. But like, I don't want no jealous bitch. Like, you have a thing. Anyway, so, and yeah, I also think that the end was wrapped up super too nice. It was too nice of a happy ending. And again, I don't want to get too much into it, but I don't like the idea of, and it's not framed this way, but even so, I feel like it's something that Joanna had spoken about like he's going to cure her her babylessness, and it was a thing for me that I was like, okay, well, not that it deflated the tension that not that it deflated the tension that was created by her having to choose what she wanted to do with her life at one particular moment that wasn't very convenient for her. But I felt like, hey, I guess it would have been really interesting to me for her to have seen that motherhood that wasn't necessarily biological could be just as fulfilling. Those are my thoughts. Overall thoughts. I guess we could dive into whatever Tosh has now, but it was good. Maybe I'll pick up another book. I'm not sure. I'm like on the fence, but overall, pretty okay.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff you guys mentioned does kind of correlate to the questions I wrote down, so we'll see kind of how fast we can get through everything. I tried to put them in a decent order, but so the first one was just like my ballpark. How did you feel about the main characters as like characters, as like their relationship together? How did you feel about like their chemistry? Did it feel like a little too much, or did it feel like believable? Like, oh yeah, people could kind of have this sort of relationship that started when you're children and then just kind of like carried on somehow into adulthood.
I mean, I can go first. I do believe that it happens, and I do think, and I've had that moment of maybe not like a childhood best friend, but I've definitely had that moment of like running into someone from my past and like immediately feeling like those things again. So it wasn't that it wasn't believable. I 100% believe that like it happens. I just don't like it. But that's what I'm saying. It's like it's a me thing. I don't think the book did it wrong. I believe it. I've had it happen to me too, but I just didn't want to read about it. But yeah, I thought that it, their chemistry was believable. I just wasn't into it. Not gonna lie, I skimmed through a lot of most of the sex scenes, and they all seem to be like titty sucking going down.
Man, she loves a good titty suck.
I'm like, oh, here come the titties. Okay, I can skim ahead. Like, I don't know. I just didn't connect with this book. And sex scenes are always such like a hit or miss for me in general. Like, I definitely don't read romance for the sex scenes, as you guys already know. But in this book in particular, I was just like, yeah, we get it. Like, I was just like going through it. But I did think it was believable. I do think that when you run into someone from your past, you tend to feel things faster because you already have that sort of background. It's like you remember. It's like, oh, I've already felt like this one way before. So like, it's easy to feel that way again. I thought it was believable. And like I said, I like the two of them separately as characters. I don't know. It's not that I shipped them with any other people either, but I just didn't.
I don't think there was anyone else to ship them with. I think they were very
unless like him and his partner.
Yeah.
But I didn't like her either.
They made sure we didn't like her. Woof! They made sure we didn't like her. Okay.
Yeah, because they have to make her, they have to make extra sure that you don't see what they're doing as wrong. So like, it's like we have to make triple sure, cover all of our bases and then some.
I as far as their chemistry is concerned, I got it. I definitely also know what it is to like suddenly see an old flame and be like, oh, right back where I was since the beginning. I did not understand what the fucking rush was. Because it, like, we're living in a world of Facebook and Instagram, like, and they had each other's phone numbers. They could have like easily just started texting. Like I said, it felt like everything went from 0 to 169 degrees.
Well, but
degrees miles per hour.
I do think it's different. Like, they set up the book as like this perfect bubble of time where like his partner was out of town, his child was out of town, she was conveniently on vacation before her next campaign. So I agree that I thought it was fast, but I think the way they set it up, it's like, well, it has to happen now because everything is perfectly aligned and we might never get this like perfect, you know, combination of. And again, I think that like, obviously the author did that on purpose. So, you know.
Well, I'll push back on that by saying that he was done with it. He was done with his partner. They had like broken up and made the decision. So I think that even though they, what am I trying to say? Even though, yes, she's only in town for like they had already connected, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so
no, I get
he had
you.
already made up his mind about like not being with his partner, and so. Anyway, it's perfectly fine for it to have moved fast. I was just like, holy fuck it, can we just calm the fuck down? And but I liked how into each other they were. I liked how horny they were for each other. I just felt like there was a lot of ground to cover. Like they hadn't seen each other for like decades. And I don't know about you guys, but like I'm not the same person I was when I was 12.
Girl.
Like there are some like very important like milestones in one's life. So I just thought it was, when I say that I felt like it moved fast, I feel like they were quickly like, I love you right away. And I feel like there wasn't enough of an interesting factor there for me that they didn't grow enough apart from each other to then have any, you know, they were like, well, how many people have you had sex with? Oh, like 8. How many people have you had? And then that's it. Like, that's all they share. I didn't get to see them. We get this whole thing about these parents, like having this conversation. They're not the main characters of the story. And we see this whole kind of like strife happen between these two families in the first like couple of chapters. And then when these two people who have like strong emotions, but have had completely different lives up until that point meet up, there's no conflict. Like, aside from like, I don't know if we should do this because I'm not sure if you're lying about being with your partner. Like, that's it. Like, there's no, all of their values aligned, they were two extremely attractive and successful Black people. And I was like here for it. But like, it did make them feel a little shallow for me because, you know what I mean? Like,
I get what you're saying. It's like the 1 week I love you, let's be mates only works in Aurora's Angel. There's no other book where it works, where they suspend time.
Yeah, and Aurora's Angel, they like have disagreements. They don't see eye to eye in certain things, even if it's like, oh, I don't eat animals, but I'm okay with eating fish. You know what I mean? Like they definitely have disagreements, and they work through them so that then at the end of that struggle, they're closer together. And it just felt like the author set it up so that all of the work was done and all they needed to do was have sex. And that just wasn't a satisfying conclusion for me. But I mean, aside from that, like, aside from Ezra being like super possessive, despite not having any claim to be that I didn't like that. He was like, I don't want you to date other people. She's like, okay, I mean, I'm not, but why do you even have to say that? Like, shut up. Like, who are you? You're not even like my actual boyfriend right now. So
I don't know.
She's like that too, though. She's like, oh, I can't believe you had a baby with someone else. Like, I can't believe you have this whole life.
How dare you have pictures of your partner up on the wall?
On the wall with your child. Like,
you made me a recipe that came from her side of the family. I can't. I don't want to eat
so petty. And so, yeah, there was... and when you guys bring this up, yes, there were things that they disagreed on. But there were things about, like, the relationship. Not like, oh... you elected you got this candidate in office and I don't align with them politically, you know?
They've just had really strong political beliefs since they were 12 to 14. They both had really intense political aspirations. They both talked about pro-choice / like pro-life. And they both, this is all in their like notebook, their childhood journal.
A little sidebar too. What is writers' like obsession with getting Latino people elected into office in fiction? What is
Every
up with that?
time.
Every time there's like a political factor in a book that I've read, not just in Red, White, and Royal Blue, but like in this one and other books that I've read, they're like, no, they're the first like Latina congresswoman or Latino president.
Okay, this is my theory. It's like simultaneously the most divisive and the least divisive, because people, like, you have stuff like immigration, it's like huge, like 50-50, like, you know, completely divide the country. But in general, I feel like when people see like a Latino man, they react less badly than when they see, say, a person in like a hijab.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like the safe one, but also one that has enough like division that it's like, ooh, but what is this gonna be? That's why I feel it's like an easy, and you don't have to do too much research, you know, to write it. It's like just pick, like, grab your Mexican friend, and like I feel like that's what they think. It's like it's more accessible to write.
Yeah,
I agree. It is in a lot of.
That makes a lot of sense to me as an explanation, because yeah, it's like black elected official has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Gay, too far. Unless it's a queer book, and then makes a little more sense. There's a little more flexibility there. Like, okay, we'll see. But yeah, I agree. Anything else that involves like too much research, it's like then there's a bigger chance of you fucking it up. Like, for example, the love interest who is supposed to be Vietnamese, but then also is part Japanese, and then only some of the Japanese stuff gets brought up. And I didn't even it didn't even register to me when I was reading the book, because I was so distracted with like the terrible characterization that this woman
honestly,
received.
Like, I don't know enough to be able to pick up, like, you put something in a different language that's not Spanish. I don't know if it's accurate. You know what I mean? Because I don't know what that says. I don't know enough to know if, like, unless it's like a really famous kind of meal item, like I don't know enough to distinguish between like a food that might be Vietnamese versus like Japanese. Like, okay, pho, okay, that's, you know what I mean? But like other stuff in here, like I don't know enough about it. So yeah, I probably wouldn't have picked up on it at all if I hadn't read that review that like criticized that, just because I don't know enough to know what's accurate or not.
Yeah. And that does feel kind of like the politician conversation. It does kind of feel like if you're not going to lean into it and actually be actively writing additional details that kind of give you a bigger picture of who this person is and like their life background and stuff, then it almost would have been safer to not even mention that detail. And like, if you're going to have a character who is of Asian descent, just let her be Japanese, because at least you know enough to be able to kind of fake it. But adding in the additional detail of her like mixed background, it's kind of like, okay, because then you set yourself up for people to have expectations
in this book. Everyone was like triple mixed. They couldn't be like partly mixed. It was like everyone had like 5 different things in them.
Which, like,
I mean, and
nice.
that's okay. It's nice, yeah.
But in this specific town too, I mean, it just I don't know what area this is set in too. Like, it felt like this is a suburb.
Like with Ezra, I feel like we really got a sense of both sides of his family.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, like he's the main character. So, but you know, but I agree. I just feel like with his ex, we don't really get as full of a sense as we do like here.
And that's easily fixed. That's like include a flashback of like him and what's her name, Aiko, and like hanging out with her family or something,
or even having the son like do certain things that you know, the way that he did certain things because of his Jewish grandma, like just have, because they mentioned the kid being in tune with like his Jewish heritage, but they don't mention anything about the kid being in tune with like his mom's side of the family at all in terms of like their culture. So that, I think that could have been an easy way to do it too. Just have like the kid participating in something.
And same with the congressman or whatever, or the senator, or maybe include part of his speech or something, like something that like tells me who he is, because ultimately if I can like change his name and like omit that, oh, the first blah blah blah, it could just be anybody. And he did not everybody has to be something, but like then it just feels like the world is a diverse place like effortlessly. But books aren't at that point where they're effortlessly diverse. Like you really have to put thought into how you're diversifying your characters and why. And if you like don't have a strong enough why, especially to the people who identify with that character, then you failed.
My Aiko question was talking about more like not so much about her background, but about like how they painted her as a character, how she's supposed to be someone who like he was super into and they got swept away and they had this kid and decided to have this like not traditional life together. But then it's like I didn't appreciate that it was her choice to want to open up the relationship. He said, I'm not down to do that, so we need to break up. She wasn't cool with that. She lost her shit at that. Then she went away with the other guy and like hooked up with him and then came back and made such a show of the fact that True and Ezra were hooking up. But I think that also plays into like what Andrea mentioned earlier with this specific genre where like you talk about the inevitability of this relationship, but then it makes every other decision you've made feel like you were doing it while you were waiting for this other thing to happen.
And he says that to her, like, I died. When he basically tells her, like, no, she's my soulmate. She was like my first love. And, you know, ever since the minute I saw her again, and I was like,
holy
oh
fucking
my God.
shit. Yeah, that's what a fucking destroy. 10 years of wasted 10 years of
He didn't
wasted
even
energy.
say it in like a delicate way. He was telling everyone because he told like their mutual friend too. He was like, "Quiero que te diga," like it's just we're meant for each other, blah blah blah. And she was like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, that would not have been my reaction. I would have been like, "You've been fucking with my best friend for 10 years," like you know what I mean? Like what?
I mean, and some people maybe like we can read it that he wasn't aware of it, you know, like out of sight, out of mind. A part
But
of
it
him
still
like
makes
really
him
held
feel
out hope.
shitty about the other relationship though. Like she never got, and she says it, right? She's like, okay, so we never had a chance. And he's like, bueno, I mean, if we had been married, like I would have made myself stay with you.
Oh my God.
Which is even more fucked up.
Yeah,
like
that's
I
so
know,
annoying.
I feel like the Aiko story would have been like a lot less. I would have had a lot less problems reading a book from her perspective of like she met this guy, she was super into him, they decided not to get married because she's like not super into that, she's tempted, she's trying to figure out how to make it work. Cut to him being like, nope, we never would have worked out, we never would
But
have
if
had a
you had
chance.
married me, then it would have
I
been a
have
different
values,
story.
and
What
my
a terrible
marriage
thing to
values would have kept me with you. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Do you know how many
Yeah.
people want to hook up with me on a regular
And
basis?
so that's
I
the
don't
thing
need
is,
your
I think
measly crumbs
they
of
definitely
affection.
tried to make her seem like more of a, like, especially that scene when she comes home, I think is supposed to like cement in your head, like, oh my God, this girl is crazy. Like you chose to go have sex with this guy on your photography thing, and now you come back and you're mad. How dare you? But like to me, that did not compare to like all of Ezra's conversations of like, sorry, she's my soulmate. Like you could just never be my soulmate. Like you're just not on that level. Like
and
to
you're
me,
just
that
gonna
was
have to fucking deal.
like
Wow,
that was
okay.
so much worse to me, and that's why like I I just didn't. At that point, I was just like, I hate this guy. Like, what is happening?
Yeah, he was definitely. It was a moment. And I think that again, missed opportunity. Like, you know, how interesting would it have been if like Aiko had been like consistent, you know? If we didn't get a real like solid reason why she's clearly like there are people like this. It's not like there are not people like this who want their cake, who have their cake and want to eat it too. I don't know how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, there are definitely people who are like this. I just don't think that throughout the progression of the book, that there was a really good job done with Aiko. Especially at the end when it's like, oh, hey, he doesn't live here anymore. He's over on that street. And it's all forgiven and it's all fine. And you're just like, I thought they were going to have an argument. I thought it was going to be a tense conversation. Psych, it's not. And
but also they just
¿Cómo va a ser un argument si esta tipa made him wait 18 months? I can get over anything in 18 months. When she was like, oh yeah, we'll talk after the baby's born, whatever. And I'm like, okay, like 9 months is a long time. But then when he was like, it's been 18 months, I was like, forget it. I will have a new girlfriend by then.
I was like not super into the fact that they basically replaced one playing house scenario with another, because then Aiko's like living in a house with this new guy and that's her new boyfriend. I'm like, wasn't she just trying to like explore more? And I didn't like, it's the consistency for me. Like, it's the lack of consistency for me, because if she's the one who's like, I love you, but I do want to open this up, then like, why wouldn't it make more sense to you to be like, okay, I guess this is happening now. Cool. Do you both want to fuck? Like, any chance of that happening? What's up? No? Not into that? Okay. I'm going to go take my son to spend time with my family then. You guys figure out your lives. Like, I feel like her perspective would have been a lot cooler if A, they had kept her consistent, and B, and this is unrelated to point A, I feel like he probably throughout the majority of their relationship probably expressed pretty conservative values. So I'm kind of surprised that she even thought he'd be cool with opening up the relationship in the first place. Because, like, Ezra reads like a pretty...
Hello, yes! Wants to
inside the box character.
Yeah. Seem like, you know.
I'm pretty sure he's never done anything. The trampoline is the, like, most out there thing he's ever done, probably, in my opinion.
And that's because he got so carried away and like seeing her again after 2 decades that he was just like, all fucks thrown out. Let's do it on the trampoline.
'Twas the load that needed to be blown. Speaking of the trampoline.
I would read the book of Aiko on the photography expedition, because I bet those sex scenes were like super. I bet there was some sexy photo shoots going on, like with like gazelles in the background.
Yeah, and then like them finding out the baby drama, right? Yeah. And then her being like, I don't want to be, psych, I don't want to be with you. And then he's like, what? And then she comes back and tries to get back together. And then Chaz is like, well, whatever. That seems very dramatic too.
I'm also just confused. Like, you have this person who's this like photographer traveling. She's doing all this stuff. She like wants her freedom again. She doesn't want to not have her job or whatever. And then she gets pregnant a second time. I'm like, you don't have to have this baby, right?
Right? I was like, when she was like, just I have an appointment on Monday. I was like, they're getting an abortion. Awesome.
Yeah. And she's like, you can come with me, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, just because you had the first baby with this guy when you thought you were going to have a lifetime relationship together doesn't mean...
Yeah, it's not an option. You
guys, have to have...
Women want to be
moms.
No
one needs to know.
All women want to be moms. And if you have a baby, there's no alternative but to have it. Period. I literally... That's why I had such a weird... It was just weird reading scenes with Aiko in it because, like I said, like, just not consistent, and then it just didn't appear like it was happening in the real world. Like, yes, rooted in reality, very set in reality, but also like it's I would have looked up my crush on Facebook. I have done that before. And yeah, if I'm interested in not having traditional relationships, if I don't want to if I'm interested in open relationships, if I'm wanting to recapture that part of my life.
I didn't read it as she wanted an open relationship. I read it as like their marriage was failing and their therapist was like, well, there's one more thing.
Exactly.
You can try.
But she wanted to travel. He said she put a lot of things on hold for the baby. So like, this is just like her kind of like her becoming, right? And so she gets pregnant and it's like, okay, well, I guess never mind.
Take it back. Never mind. Get back in the house.
Yeah, and she's like put as like the more like progressive of the two because of like the things that she says, and it didn't even come up. There was never even like a conversation about it. Like, man, should we have this with all the problems we're having? But no, it's like we can save this family with this baby. And
Like Chaz never brought it up. Like, oh, you think this is smart? Like
Chaz literally, all Chaz did was like come in and out of doors. He was like, "Oh, hey babe, sorry, I didn't know you were there. Oh, hey babe, sorry, babe.
Oh, babe,
Whoops, sorry, I didn't know you're telling me you're.
I thought this was the bathroom.
Yeah,
I know
he
I keep
literally
doing
like
this every
coming
time.
in
This
and
house is
out of
confusing.
doors. That's all he did. The role of a lifetime. And if they ever make this movie, Chaz.
He just fucked Aiko and then got lost in houses. That's really funny. How did you feel about the trampoline sex scene?
I skimmed
Thoughts?
through most of it. So I thought they had sex. But then later, yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. It's like I just kind of skimmed through and I'm like, aha, trampoline, titties, aha. And then I thought they had like had sex. And then later on, they're like, oh, but should we have sex? And I'm like, what? Didn't you have sex on a trampoline? So I'm not the person to ask, is what I'm getting at.
So, okay. I thought that they were, okay. So when you tell me about like trampoline sex, I think that there's like gymnastics involved. So it was a little bit disappointing and deflating when it actually happened. I was like, oh, he's just gonna like eat her, like not, I don't like eat her out. He just kind of finger bangs her. I mean, it was hot and I was really happy for her. I was like, you girl, you know? But I felt like it had been built up in my head. Do you know what I mean? And I think every time I thought about it, every time we brought it up, it got like crazier and crazier. And to have it be like this very mundane, it did feel very like high school. It did feel like this is they're you know, kind of like catching up with like the dumb shit that they probably would have done had they stayed in the same town. Or like, you know, just in a car, but not right now. It's just like in a trampoline outside. And I mean, it was outside. There was like people like in the house. Like
I was nervous reading it. I was waiting for the kid to walk out and be like, Dad, what? That's not Mom. What's happening? And him just like, this is your new mom now. What?
Or like the neighbor.
My trampoline.
Like, when they were having, what was that? When they were like making out with the sprinklers and stuff, or like anytime they were making out in the yard at night, I was like, okay, you guys realize that like all she has to do, the neighbor, is look out the window and she's gonna see you. Like there's no like tall brick wall here. Like she can see you.
Yeah, I literally I picture Andrea just at her window eating like rice. Like
I do this all the time. I watch my neighbors all the time.
That's what I'm saying.
Iban con los binoculares.
Ivan with that. So it's Andrea on one house, like looking out her window and like eating like vegan cheese puffs, and then on the other house, it's on the second floor, Ivan with binoculars.
Yeah, 100%. And then me just being like, "What are you doing? Oh, are they doing it again? God damn it!"
He's like, "Yeah,
stop it!
Here. Check it out." Give me those.
Wait, let me see. Oh my God, the kid's walking out. Oh my God, do you think he's gonna catch him? Like,
you don't know how many times like this happens where I'll be watching something on TV with Shaka and I'm like, Shaka, pause it. I hear something. And I'll like go to the window, the sliding door, the peephole in the door, you know, depending on the direction. And he'll be like, Andrea, can we please keep watching this? And I'm like, hang on.
You're like ready to live your Snoopy vecina
woman next door. It's just woman next door. Sans agoraphobia.
The robe, the hair curlers. I also wrote, okay, so trampoline sex scene, not as good as it could have been. That's totally fine. I wrote, did it feel weird to see these characters as young children, then flashing forward to a very sexual story, then reading the like moments of post-pubescent, I guess, tension in the same tone that you were reading the like adult tensions, because that's where I got uncomfortable. Because I'm like, if I'm reading a YA book and like teens are finding themselves or whatever, and like, oh no, my vagina's live, what's this feeling? Like, but there's like an exploratory thing to it. Like, it tends to be. What's going on down there, Bessie?
My favorite sex ed book, My Vagina is Alive. What is this?
Exactly. It's very like usually it's like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, what is this? And then when I got to the scenes where they like kiss and all that stuff is happening in this book, it was like I had to remind myself these are like 13-year-olds. Like these weren't 18, 19-year-olds making out in the back of a car. These were like kids having their first kiss with each other, but they're like Frenching. There's like stuff going on. He's like getting hard. Like it was so uncomfortable to read because I know the age of these kids, and knowing that they're gonna be fucking then in adulthood put this like weird tone because the lens with which this was being seen was a very adult lens, and I was not comfortable with that. And I just wanted to, from what I've heard thus far, it feels like we're on the same page of like, why are these kids doing this? None of us wanted to see
I'm
this
happy
happen.
to hear you say that because I was like really, I was worried that I was going to be the only one who felt that way. I felt like that kissing scene was so extra, so extra. I don't think it needed to be that graphic. And but that's not to say like kids have like a moments when they have kisses with other kids. It's not like it's teens have sex lives, right? It's not like I'm denying that. I just don't want to be in the room when it happens. Like I want them to just be able to do their own thing. And so that's kind of like right the part that I was like always uncomfortable with when reading like young adult books that had like really intense kind of like make out or even heavy petting scenes where it's just like this isn't for me.
I
Because
don't want to be in the room.
I don't want to be here right now. I would absolutely.
I really don't want to be here.
And I think you know what I think the problem is like, well, clearly she doesn't write books for kids, right? She writes books for adults, and I think she went into it in like a book with adults. In order for like a relationship to start, you have to have that like intense chemistry scene. And so I think in her head she was like, well, they can't progress to then dating and then us having this scene where they're like torn apart and it's so incredibly sad and dramatic. Like, how do I start it? And I think in her head she was like, well, I need to start it the same way I would start an adult encounter, with like a really intense like
make out
kind of thing. But like, you don't like, she could have because they had all of that friendship, she could have literally just had them have like a sweet peck or like a kiss or whatever, and then it could have immediately gone into the okay, well now we're dating and we're pecking every day or what, you know what I mean? Like it didn't need to be like that, and it could have still worked. But I think in her head, as someone who doesn't write for kids, she approached it kind of in the same way as like adults, where like it has to be significant enough to jumpstart the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, and what happens afterwards is like it has more weight on what happens in their lives than the kiss. Ultimately, like when they meet up later on, they pick up where they left off. But I mean, that didn't mean that they had to pick up like as they're making out as like 12-year-olds. And it could have been like it can literally been like, wow, I felt like this, because also that's just like, I don't know, like I had my first kiss in middle school at like a dance, and
it was awkward.
It was not awkward. Like, and she says in the back of the book, it says like, oh, it was like sloppy or whatever, but like in the moment, it didn't read that way. In the moment, it felt like a very intense makeout scene, and I was like, I was telling Drea, I was like, I'm going to vomit. What the fuck is this?
Have I ever told you about my first kiss?
Go on.
Yeah, you know how anxious I am now, but I was also that anxious when I was a teenager. And this guy was like an asshole. He ended up being like a terrible, emotionally abusive person, but at the time I didn't know it. And we went to the movies, and I spent the entire movie, like, oh, is he gonna like touch my hand as we reach for the popcorn, blah blah blah, all this stuff. And then the movie ended, and it was like the credits, and he turned to kiss me. And I just completely froze. I turned into like a block of cement because I was so anxious. Did not react at all. O sea, imagínate like kissing a wall. That was what it must have felt like to kiss me. Did not move, did not interact, nothing. And so he got super pissed and just like walked out and left. And then later on, he was like, but have you done, and I, being baby Andrea, I was like, well, like, can we try again? I was just like, he's like, no, blah, 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 blah. And so I spent like so many months like tortured by that I'm like, oh my God, I had this chance to like and I like completely blew it. Like I was just baby Andre. I was so anxious. Like I wanted it so much that then when it happened, I was just like,
Yeah. My first kiss is technically with the boy that I knew from church who I really, really liked. And I didn't see him for years. And then I was hanging out with my sister at the beach and he showed up and he like knew the people that my sister was hanging out with and everyone was drinking and smoking and I was not. And they started teasing him about how he liked me in church too. And they were like egging him on and he like kissed me and I did not consent or expect it or know that it was coming. And it was very upsetting because it smelled like cigarettes and tasted like cigarettes. And it was in front of like 6 or 7 people.
I'll tell you mine. Mine was it was in a middle school like homecoming dance or whatever. I remember I wore like this very on purpose, very on brand for Chris, like tube jean dress that I got at Charlotte Russe. And I got highlights in my hair and I was like, this is it. I'm getting kissed tonight. And I did. I got super kissed that night. Unfortunately, my mom saw it because she walked in to pick me up because she couldn't reach me on my phone at the time.
Because you were getting kissed?
Because I was getting kissed. And she was like, what the hell are you doing? And I was like,
dying inside.
Good feelings are gone. And but yeah, it in the moment it was all right. It was pretty all right. But you know,
I feel like this is really reflective of our individual personalities.
Yes,
that these are the scenarios under which the three of us received our first kisses.
I don't think that it was a great kiss. And I remember like it was a boy and he like I remember started kissing me before he got to my mouth. I don't know if you remember that story. He was like doing that before he got to my actual face. So it was just like, okay, this is happening. And then like my mom shows up and I'm like, oh fuck. It was this whole thing. And so yeah, that was my middle school. Years later, we kind of like reconnect but he's like gonna get married and then I don't get invited to the wedding. And I was just like, okay. And then he's a cop and he's very pro-gun. So I'm like, listen, it wasn't going to be the same scenario as it wasn't going to be the same scenario as Queen Moose for sure. It was definitely not going to be that, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure my first kiss is like dead because I've been unable to find any evidence of him on any social platform ever. Every now and then I think about him, and a while back I was like, they have my in because I'm friends with like 1 or 2 of his sisters on social, and like no one has any info, like no one's posted anything, and I'm like, he's either like dead or like es un tecato that nobody talks to in any way, shape, or form because like maybe he's in jail. No sé, it was that kind of thing where like I liked him when we were in church and I thought he was really cute and he had green eyes. I was like, hell yeah, he's really pretty. And then las drogas, mano, like they really, really fucked him up badly. And I was like, oh shit. Whoops.
So I guess none of us are having our like,
second reencuentros.
No, but I've had second chances with people, just not with. Actually, no, I did hook up with him again later on, but it was a mistake. It should not have happened.
We've all been there, girl. We've all been there.
¿Qué otra pregunta yo tengo? Okay, let's talk about the twist. We haven't mentioned the twist. I want to make sure we get to it before the video gets too late. Spoiler alert, if you have not finished this book and you do want to finish it without a spoil, this is your moment to pause and skip to whenever we put some sort of thing in the video that's like, start this again.
I will put it in the video.
Okay. So I 100% knew this was coming. I clocked it as soon as it was like, we need to leave, blah, 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 blah. I was like, obviamente something happened with the parents. And then as I kept reading it, I was like, if it was the mom and the dad, like the one mom and the one dad, that's way too obvious because I feel like everything was done so aggressively with like such secrecy, like we can never come back to this town again, salt the earth type of drama that I was like, this is going to be some gay stuff because that's for the time, for the way that the moms met, the way they were describing their friendship. I was like,
but you know what? And the only reason I didn't like that as a twist was because they made it seem like Well, it wasn't a gay thing.
It wasn't
It
a
was
gay
just
thing.
we were just so lonely that we just
My
like
husband was traveling.
You know what I'm
Listen, don't get me started. I really did not like that. It felt very biphobic. It felt extremely biphobic to me. And
you're like, well, the men can't be the bad guys because we want to make sure you think the dads are good guys. But if you blame it on the moms being lonely, then people can like forgive it.
and it's one of those things where they feel like the book is going somewhere and then it falls completely flat. Like the mom is like, oh, you know, you have all this hero worship for your dad and he wasn't like a perfect person. And like I found no evidence that he was not a perfect person.
And I agree
was
with you, Chris, that for me it did feel like a little biphobic, and then that turned into a lot biphobic when they finally get back together and like the author like makes a point of saying like, and they reunited not as ex-lovers but as just like friends.
They were only friends.
They were all these good old gal pals.
Yeah, and I was just like, okay, thank you for clarifying yet again. Okay, they don't like women. Got it.
It was just this
they liked women enough when her fucking bracelet fell off and got wedged in the floorboards. Like,
I was like, what were y'all doing?
they were doing some construction work.
Was getting drilled. Let me tell you, you might maybe kiss someone at a party because you're lonely and it has nothing to do with, but you don't take someone to your secret cabin to have sex. And it's just like, oh, we were lonely. It didn't. No, there's like a line. There's like a difference between like, oh, I was drunk and I kissed a girl and whatever. It was just a set of lips to like, I went down on your pussy in our secret cabin and then
multiple times.
Yeah, it went on for a little bit too.
Enough times that the bracelet fell off because that was like, oh, one of the times it must have happened, and then your father like caught on to what was going on. It's like if he caught on to what was going on, that means it was going on for a while because it caught on to what was going on versus caught us kissing in the closet one time.
Yeah, I think it would have been extremely easy for them to just like deny it too. Like, prove it? Prove it that we went to hang out at the lake house. We're just crocheting, obviously. You know what I mean? Like, what are the men gonna think about these perfect men with no suspicions, you know? So yeah, I definitely, whether it was intentional or not, read it as extremely biphobic. At no point, you know, they're just like brushing it off so hard.
And they like make a point too, I think, of like, and y mira esta, she even married again to a nice Jewish guy. Yeah. So like, you know,
yeah, that the sexy phase, Scott Pilgrim sexy phase, over. And I didn't like that. I thought that the twist was interesting. And it again, a simple fix, like say like, yes, you know, like she's the only woman that I've ever like had those really intense feelings for. But when it was happening, it was just like being in love with your father, you know, it was that intense, and it was because I was lonely. Do you know what I mean? And then that they hold each other in such high regard is good, but it always feels like, oh yes, she's an excellent friend, a great friend of mine, a friend and only that, an excellent woman, a pillar of femininity, not gay in the least. It just, that definitely, every time they would talk about each other, it felt very like don't read into this. There's definitely nothing to read here, Harold. And it's like, they're lesbian.
You know what? You know what I mean? And you know what? It doesn't necessarily surprise me that they would say that, but at the very least, you as the author could have had these super progressive lovers in their 30s be like, Mommy, it's okay. Like, if you like women, you like what, you know what I mean? Like, but at no point they're all like, oh yes, of course. Like it was.
They're like, yes, of course. Oh goodness, they must have been so lonely. My poor lonely mother. My poor lonely straight mom. And I was just like, who was the top? Like, what were they doing? Why didn't I get that?
You know, the Jewish mom was the top.
Yeah,
probably. I only have a handful of questions more. I wrote, all right.
My robe is trying to like just expose me, by the way. Just like, I'm trying to.
Trampoline titties. All right, so I'm going to skip one of these. I wrote, okay, because I was laughing. I had to go back and reread. And I don't know if y'all caught this. And I just wanted to bring it up because it's really funny. Because he and her are, like, talking. and they're developing their relationship and whatever. And she mentions, oh, I'm gonna freeze my eggs because X, Y, and Z. I'm so busy. I'm getting these, like, whatever. So she says, I'm gonna freeze my eggs. Book happens. Then later on, when they end up talking again at some point, she mentions the freezing of her eggs. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? When were you going to tell me that this was something you were doing? Blah, 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 blah. And he has, like, no idea that this was something she was doing, that she was, like, getting shots. He's like, are you okay? What are you injecting yourself with? What is this? What are you putting in your body?
I thought that they had talked about it when they went to the brunch.
They did. She told him, I'm going to freeze my eggs.
Yeah, and then later on, when she's talking about it, I was like, why is he so surprised? Okay, cool. I thought I missed something.
No, I think the author forgot that she already wrote in a scene where they had talked about it, and she told him that she was gonna freeze her eggs because she was getting older and she didn't know when she's gonna be able to have a kid, and then just like forgot. And it's just like,
yeah, I could definitely see it that way too. I think I didn't have that reaction because I assumed it was a like, wait, but that was before you were the love of my life though. Are you still gonna freeze them? Like, I can knock you up right now. Like, that's how I interpret of him being like, espérate. You're still gonna freeze your eggs when I'm like right here?
I mean, I felt when they were gonna have sex and they were gonna like have raw dog sex, like unprotected, and she's like, I'm clean and it's okay, I'm covered. I was like, he knows. That's what I thought. I was like, I thought you, unless I read it completely incorrectly and he was not there when she was telling Mona about perimenopause, but I swear that he was there.
You didn't
when they had the
marked it in my book.
Well, no, when they had the sex without the condom, she still hadn't told him that she wasn't having her periods or anything.
But they talked, because I went back in the book and I'm like, I know for a fact that I read her telling him, and she told him, yeah, I'm like struggling with some stuff, I'm gonna like freeze my eggs, blah, 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 blah. And then later when they're together, he's like, what? I'm gonna be lenient and say maybe it's him being like, but my magic dick is here to cure your infertility, and not
it does because they even say that all the doctors are like, what? How did you manage to have babies naturally?
It's because they're soulmates.
Yeah, and I told Chris, when I was reading it, we were together. I don't know when we were together, but I remember telling her, like, watch. They're going to have a baby, it's going to be all natural, and it's going to be all cool, and, like, forget all these medicines, because he's just going to, like, soulmate his way into her ovaries, and that's exactly what happened.
And I wrote down at some point, I made a note where I was like, I'm uncomfortable with the way that the word, like, we're going to naturally have a family, we're going to do this naturally, kept being thrown around, because, like, science is part of nature, and science has gotten us to a place where we can use it to have babies, and it's not always easy for women to get pregnant. And the idea that somehow there was something wrong with her, and like the tone that it took in some scenes was very kind of like preachy, and I didn't like that, because that the implication there is like, A, if you can't have your own babies without having to have medical intervention, there's something wrong with you. And B, you're only really complete if you are able to have a baby naturally. So like, even though she has all these political aspirations and all these like career things she wants to achieve, as soon as she finds out she may not be able to have a baby, devastation. Oh my God. And then he's just like, why are you freezing your eggs? We'll solve this. Like,
yeah, and then I do appreciate how she's like, it's not like the fact that like up until this point I haven't even had to think about being a mother because it wasn't first and foremost, but now that I have to decide in such a short period of time, I get the rush at that point to like figure out what it is that you're gonna do. You know what I mean? But I just think it was she adds the line of like, yes, but you know, I'm so glad we're having our baby, our natural baby, but you have to remember that I love your son and daughter almost as if they were my own, like they were my own. And I'm like, that could have been the end of the story and it still would have been a happy ending. Do you know what I mean? She still could have achieved that happily ever after, or not, like, because it just happens. And that's why I said that it was like tied up too nicely. Aiko was okay after, I mean, yes, granted, it's been like 18 months or whatever, but still, like, even farther down the line, like, she's okay, no one's mad. That's okay. Nobody
All their
knows their moms were.
families got together
All
for
the
like
families
the
got together.
holidays.
The moms are not bisexual, pansexual by any means. And yeah, like true love solves
Everyone's
infertility.
Oh,
everyone's just listening to Jesus,
the idiot
following Jesus.
brother who cheats on his wife is now.
Oh,
like,
now he's also a
he's
politician.
Now he's a politician. He's
Listen,
definitely never
she
going to cheat
definitely-
on her again.
He
He just
won
went
the
through a rough
election for
time.
the other guy. And yeah, I mean, I'm down for happily ever after. It's just that when so many things work out and like there doesn't need to be a lesson, but it didn't feel like I got anything from this happily ever after. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that she didn't deserve to have her own children. I'm just saying, wouldn't it have been nice to explore that, seeing as how she was already a career woman? Do you know what I mean? She was already, a career woman, and why not just be like, we're gonna freeze these eggs, but let's leave a big question mark. We don't know what's gonna happen, but for right now, I'm happy. Like I'm happy right now with my like blended family. Like this completes me in a way that I don't even care if like a biological kid does that to me. And I think it's important the way that you say things, even if you're just trying to make it a happy ending, like because both versions can be a happy ending.
Yeah, like say what you will about Friends, because it was very, very white show and whatever. But Chandler and Monica try to have a baby and then they can't have a baby. And then they pursue adoption. Adoption's really hard, and then they eventually are able to adopt. And they're like, awesome, cool. Like we found a way to make our family, and we're super happy and like blessed and like yay. They didn't have her magically be able to just like, I'm fixed now, everything's fine. And I think the approach of like, oh, just because you're not able to like become impregnated the first, like as soon as you try the first time around, like it doesn't mean anything. Like it doesn't happen for everybody, and not every first pregnancy works out. Like women miscarry all the time too. Like, oh, not only did she get her uterus healed, but now also she had no issues with that pregnancy. Like she's probably just she's gonna get knocked up 3 more times and not have any issues. She's not going to have any sort of complications.
In the next book, she's gonna be a side character, or like pass by like the first one, and she's gonna be pregnant, like but with her like 5th kid. And
yeah. She's like a consultant. She's like an offline political consultant. She works from home. She and her sister both just like watch all their kids together. I'm glad you mentioned the like nice ribbon, because my last question was like, this is a little too clean of a happily ever after, given all the stuff that's happened. Also, during the length of this discussion, I went back into Goodreads and I changed my review to a 3 because
no, it was the opposite. we were supposed to go up a star. We weren't supposed to go down a star.
I'm not going up. I already went up from 2.5.
I'm like, wait, honestly, I think once we got to the like by erasure in the like moms, I'm like, you know what? No.
They're just really good friends to shine.
They're just really good friends. So overall, I would say
but esa tipa, they were gonna take it with them to their grave.
The only
reason that came out was the necklace. That was never gonna get shared.
I don't know that. And you know what was gonna happen too? Like one of the grandkids is gonna be gay, and one of the grandmas was gonna be like, "That's disgusting." Like it was gonna be, it was gonna be one of those things where like if one of those grandkids comes out as gay or queer.
Oh, you know what also got fixed?
Gonna be okay.
You know what also got fixed so tidily? The whole book thing. The lady was like, "Oh yeah, no worries. I'll delete that. That's cool. I'll edit my book for you. No worries." Like, so that wouldn't happen in real life. There would be like a whole column like on the internet, and like
on the shade room.
And then they tried to bribe me and blah 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 blah. And
would absolutely be on the shade room.
Yes.
Oh boy. That being said, I read it and I wasn't like that. Like, I still think it was an enjoyable read. It was by far not the most perfect read. But it did have some like glaring problematic things. One of which, honestly, I feel like we didn't really talk about because like we're going a little long here. But the whole fact that like it makes it sound Queen Move sounds like she really did a lot to like move this relationship forward, and it's not the case. I think that's very misrepresentative, of Kimba's role in this. Very much like let's see what happens. Okay, yes, now we're gonna have sex, but then like, you know, everything else, it feels like she has very little control. Neither of them have a lot of control over what's happening. And I feel like the queen move is like very like boss lady vibes, but it doesn't apply to the relationship in the least. So false advertising. There's also no chess in this. Like what the fuck? Like and it's something that's referred to because she's like the one of the main characters, a queen move, but like ultimately Ezra is the one who has like the chess interest and like it happens in one scene and then it's over. And I was like, look, same as with the Falconer. If you're
I was
not
about
gonna,
to say
if
no
you're not
Falcons.
if you're gonna not gonna even bring one falcon to the table, do not call your book The Falconer.
We were so disappointed after that book.
I'm still triggered.
Never forget.
Today, we were like, what the?
Yeah. So like I was really expecting more of like boss moves. I'm gonna make things happen. I'm gonna push things forward in this relationship. And it just kind of felt like no, it didn't feel like it happened. Things were just happening to them. She was making queen moves like in her career, but like that's not what the book is about. The book's not about her career. So
It's definitely not about her career. The book's about her focusing on her career and then being like, oh wait, he's single? Never mind. Well, thank you guys for reading this with me. It wasn't the worst, wasn't the best. Had some stuff that was kind of fun. There were some scenes that were like sexy. There was some uncomfortable shit. But honestly, like, we'll see. Agree.
All right, we will be back online to read Drea's royal pick. Until then, take care. And try not to be biphobic. There's a B in LGBTQ IA+, and you should respect that.
Okay, bye. Thanks.
Thank you for hanging out with us. You can support Only Lovers Book Club by dropping some change in our tip jar and buying some books with our bookshop link. You can find us on Instagram at Only Lovers Book Club, and from there, find our individual accounts and projects. Feel free to favorite or rate us if that's an option for you, but always make sure to like and subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode.